Hi guys, Michael Califf, author of A Very Broken System. On his little drivecast with the topic, horridly, sorry trans people, but it just is what it is. You're too small a minority group to have, because sadly trans group, when it goes south, like the ugliness of non-biological women, so men showering in bathroom and being in prison with biological women, it outweighs, sadly, I know it's a complex issue, but it outweighs it too far. And any decent human being would have to be able to agree with that. If you don't want to agree with a transgender pedophile rapist is now locked up with biological women. Now you can't say, oh yeah, we trust the prison system. Corrections Victoria are the most mismanaged ravel. You can't. You put them in the custody. You can't trust them. Aside the fact that you shouldn't have to, like it's just a no-brainer, but you can't trust them. They're not a thorough organisation. They're just a bunch of job-protecting dinosaurs for the most part. Anyway, so in that, I'm reminded of this little doozy, this little chestnut, that the average geezer wouldn't be privy to, see? There's a prison called Middleton Correctional. Now, Middleton Correctional, and this is the importance of the prison system, ladies and gentlemen, as in the gravity of a good, decent nation. Exactly, hang on, Nelson Mandela. Don't judge a nation on how it treats its highest citizens, but how it treats its lowest. Nobody truly knows a nation until they have spent time in one of its prisons. In other words, you get judged on it. You know, in those little diplomacy meetings with all the bells and whistles, well, you know, like what would the neighbours think if we didn't have a decent prison system? So in that, what happened was they had, with the introduction of a lot of extraditions. So we started extraditing. Anybody over 12 months in prison got extradited. Deported. Go back to their own country. So in that, created this problem. Hang on, we've got people getting deported for a relatively small charge, non-violent charge. They were often, you know, could be a cannabis cultivator, a fraudster, white collar, you get me? So they weren't violent people or whatnot. But hang on, we can't put them in a C rating jail because a C rating prison has no fences. It's like a farm. Oh my gosh, what are we going to do? So what they did was they built, understandably, what's called I think they just call it a C asterisk, very inventive. And that is basically in between a B and a C, which is a, no, you'd think medium, right? Yeah, no, it's below that. So it's C rating with a wall, basically. So you can live with the same luxuries as you could on the easiest prisons you can do, what they call C rating. But you've got a big wall around it, so there's no chance you can abscond because you're getting deported. And anyway, so in that, this place called Middleton Correctional is relatively new. It was built about the same time MRC was built, which is 2006 from memory. Anyway, so what's ended up happening, and it almost feels, I kid you not, it almost feels like to have the DEI quota, the LGBTQI quota, but without ruffling the feathers of the old school dinosaurs that I talk about, the job protectors that exist in places like the MAP, the Metropolitan Remand Centre, probably Barwon, you know, like these, without upsetting the dinosaurs in the other prisons. It's almost, but to get the quota, they've all put this LGBT community of prison officers all at Middleton. I kid you not. Like, there is transgender prison officers, there's lesbian prison officers, there's outwardly gay prison officers. I don't know, you would have to ask them whether it was actually like intentional, you know, they manipulated it, which would be pretty ugly if they did, or if that's just how it happened. Hey, you know, why don't you come get a job, and word of mouth, who knows? But all I know is it stands out like the proverbial. You can see it's like, whoa, okay. And then the governor walks in, or one of the governors, and the governor looks like, I jokingly say, here comes the governor, looks like Dusty Martin with the first hairdo before he shaved it off. So, you know, the mullet. This is a $500,000 a year governor, comes rocking the mullet, spiked up, shaved down the sides. Good luck to her, that's what she does. Whatever, you know, we're in the 2025. If you want to wear a uniform and rock this look, good on you. I prefer the Kim Jong, I'm a bit old fashioned, I guess. I prefer the Kim Jong-un comb over more than the dusty look, but anyway, each to their own. However, when we're talking about the ugliness of, you know, when things go wrong in trans, and, you know, when things get a bit disturbing, they get disturbing sexually. Now, in this prison, there is no such thing as jail sex. Now, this is a fact. This is not like, oh, you know, oh, geez, he's a bad person for saying that. That's because this happened. Don't have a go at somebody. Don't shoot the messenger because you just don't want to acknowledge, like, the truth of a situation. So anyway, we go to Middleton and we notice, oh, the governors, which explained also in my case why the head doing little AI bot tactics started up strong at that prison too. But anyway, that's another side. Let's just stick to this trans. And in this prison, there's no such thing as jail sex in the prison system. So you know all that stuff in the movies of jail sex, that's all doesn't exist. It's not a thing in the Victorian prison system. No doubt there's definitely gays. I've met gay men come through the prison system and all that, and there's obviously a little bit of, you know, but it's not a thing. It's not like, hey, you know, geez, it's not common. And except when you get to Middleton. Middleton, and you got to remember, it's against jail law to have jail sex. In Middleton, there's more jail sex. There's literally men, grown, hairy-bottom men, sleep, like making campouts in the middle of, because the C rating has like lounge, like lodges, literally has grown, hairy-bottom men camping out like little mini orgies. I kid you not. You would walk in to go and see, hey, can you go get Azza for us? And there is a well-known drug addict, male sex worker who sells him what they used to call a rent boy, who that's how he gets his money for his drugs mostly. And there he is lying down in like a orgy of men. I kid you not. That's rife. That's common. You hear of stories of $20 canteen, and this guy will do all manner of like things I'd never heard of in the decade of prison that I'd done over my 50 years. Things I'd never heard in any other prison, but I did at this prison. And here's little Dusty, the 60-year-old, the governor, who looks like a 60-year-old, trying to emulate a 9-year-old who's trying to emulate Dusty Martin with the first hairdo. And you want to trust women in the hands of Corrections Victoria. Corrections Victoria want to throw off and blame, like, oh, you know, we're just doing what the government tells us to do. Oh, I mean, don't blame us. It is a rabble. It is disgusting rabble. Corrections Victoria allowed for the torturing of inmates because they were white middle-aged males, basically. Not basically, exactly. They would regularly do it because he's a white middle-aged male that doesn't believe in all those extreme left-wing ideologies. Little Dusty thought it's perfectly fine to try and mentally torture male inmates. And they laugh about it. And they're like, you know, you'd have this clique of like clearly lesbian prison officers thinking like, yeah, well, you know, maybe you should just leave the state then. Like, yeah. I'm kidding you not. You're breaking the law, Little Dusty. Disgusting people. The biggest hypocrites, like literally like Ellen DeGeneres. Like they sprout off all this love, harmony, inclusion. On the weekend, they're racking cocaine and participating in a P. Diddy freak-off. I'm serious. The biggest hypocrites on the planet. And people want to listen to it. Oh, don't offend them. Or you might accidentally offend, you know. Are you listening to yourselves?